The opening of Luke 5 finds Jesus teaching the multitudes from a boat just off the shoreline of Lake Gennesaret. Luke 5 verses 4 through 9. When he had stopped speaking, he said to Simon, "Launch out into the deep and let down your nets for a catch." But Simon answered and said to him, "Master, we have toiled all night and caught nothing. Nevertheless, at your word, I will let down the net." And when they had done this, they caught a great number of fish, so that their net was breaking. So they signaled to their partners in the other boat to come and help them. And they came and filled both the boats, so that they began to sink. When Simon Peter saw it, he fell down at Jesus' knees, saying, "Depart from me, for I am a sinful man, O Lord." For he and all who were with him were astonished at the catch of fish which they had taken. Though Simon's situation pertained to an absence of fish, it parallels many of our various circumstances. We all find ourselves in need. Simon was a fisherman. Therefore, the absence of fish was more than a mere inconvenience. It affected his very livelihood. We too find ourselves in such seasons, whether relating to provision, discernment, or direction. Our fleshly condition responses to panic and jump directly into action as our limited intellects lead us to a host of careless ambitions. We indeed need to exercise diligence in taking action, but it needs to be the proper action in the proper order. We do well to heed Matthew 6 verse 33 in seeking first his kingdom and his righteousness, trusting his assurance that all things will be added unto us thereby. Our first action should be not to sprint recklessly to our notions of an issue's reconciliation, but to go to the throne room and bow before our Father who knows all, purposes all, and desires all for our growth and refinement unto righteousness. Following this, we need to listen. Peter did not see the Lord's instruction as a distraction from his earthly reasoning. Even though they had caught nothing, he immediately yielded to the Lord in faith, saying, "Nevertheless." In spite of contrary earthly evidence, he chose to obey and submit due to faith and trust in the Savior. As a result, he and his contemporaries wound up with a record catch so great that the nets were strained. We too often settle for much less than the Lord desires for us because we give place to earthly circumstances and therefore do not heed heavenly instruction and exhortation. Christ himself echoed this sentiment in the midst of Gethsemane in saying, "Lord, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not my will but yours be done." The Son's willingness to submit to the Father's sovereign authority yielded the greatest sacrifice to ever be placed on the altar and granted hope to the hopeless and liberty to the captives. Tremendous things can happen when we say, "Nevertheless." It made no earthly sense for Simon to cast his nets back into the same waters that had refused to give him a catch just prior. However, yielding to the Lord will always yield fruit. We may be hearing something from the Lord that makes no sense at all. We may be called far beyond our comfort zone spiritually, emotionally, physically, or demographically. We may be called to lay down things precious to us. When such exhortation comes, we must remember our precious Savior who said, "Nevertheless," and thereby triumphed over death and solidified the sovereign covenant by which sinful man might be redeemed through the power of his blood and resurrection alone. Who knows how mightily the Lord might use us in kingdom matters if we too would just respond, "Nevertheless."